It's now my great privilege to introduce our Convocation keynote speaker. Graham Clyne is the Executive Director of the Peel Children and Youth Initiative, and I have the privilege to serve on the board of this fine organization. He's worked for over 20 years in the public and non-profit sectors in a number of capacities, including time spent as a funder, community developer, researcher, evaluator, and a senior volunteer. He was the founder of the Prevention Divided Project and the Canadian Institute of Economic Evaluation, and has spoken to and worked with a wide range of organizations across North America on strategic planning, board governance, and organizational effectiveness. Graham has led numerous research, evaluation, and public policy studies, and is an author and passionate speaker on issues affecting youth and children, and is a past winner of the Peter Drucker Award for Innovation in Canada's non-profit sector. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in warmly welcoming our keynote speaker, Mr. Graham Clyne.
I'm going to put these glasses on, even though I don't need them. Let's see if we can't get started. Thank you so much for inviting me. I have to say, this is probably one of the hardest talks I've ever had to give. I find it incredibly humbling to be here before you, knowing all the things that I don't know. And one of the things that I don't know is what the future will hold for you folks. You're going into a whole different kind of a world. And so, frankly, I got no idea about that. Can't help you with that whatsoever. What I do know is, I know one thing for sure, and there's a couple of things I know, you'll be surprised, they'll slowly come out, is that all of you have won one titanic struggle already, okay? And that is that never-ending battle between doing your schoolwork or anything else. I've gone bowling to avoid schoolwork. And you won that struggle, and good on you, and that's why you're here today. So congratulations. That's a titanic struggle, and you did it. Yeah. And of course, these days you got your friends saying, "Oh, you're missing a great time here. You got to be. It must be even worse." All right. So what I'm going to do here then is just share some stories from my life that maybe will provide a tiny bit of insight about how you could go forward in your life and realize the kind of success that you've worked so hard to achieve already. So I'm just going to share some stories with you. I hope you like them. I find them fascinating because I'm in them, but I hope you'll enjoy them as well. All right, so I was in love with an intoxicating woman when I was younger, Lisa, who was not only a vegetarian but a foreign film lover. And so not only was I starving most of the time, for lack of a hamburger, but I had to go and watch a bunch of movies that I did not enjoy, with subtitles, okay? I do remember, however, one movie, can't tell you the director or the nationality or anything because I wasn't paying attention, but it's a movie about a guy who has a day off, and he's in his apartment, and he gets ready, comes down the stairs, he's upstairs, comes down, looks around, which direction, hangs it right. And then this incredible torrent of unforeseeable circumstances happens to him, like a complete misadventure. And it's a wild route. And then all of a sudden the movie stops halfway through, you're back upstairs. And this time he goes down the stairs, looks around, goes left. And again, a whole series of misadventure ensues. Completely unpredictable. Now, I wish I could tell you that these small, inconsequential decisions that you'll make in your life didn't have that kind of resonant impact, but they do. They really do. The smallest thing that will happen to you may profoundly change the direction and course of your life. But the real message for me in this stuff is to make sure that you go left and right. Make sure that you embrace the misadventure that is sure to find you, as it will, regardless of whether you go right or left. So keep keen that sense of adventure and avoid the false comfort of familiarity. That really will not enrich your life. Sure, it feels good. So be adventurous. Turn left, turn right. When I went back to school, I had been a ski bum for about 5 years until I found out that the job description was accurate. You got to ski a lot, but you had no food in the fridge and no money in your bank account. And so I decided I would go back to school. And when I got there, my two colleagues, my two pals from high school, were already starting their PhDs. And Lee, bright guy, made a couple of decisions. You know, you have to make a hypothesis and then prove it. Well, it turns out Lee was exactly right. Did it all. 2 years later, PhD, done. Carl, on the other hand, made a whole series of assumptions, none of which worked at all. Now, it took Carl about 7 years to get his PhD, but by the time he finished, he had 11 publications to his name, because he had the sense to realize that everything that went wrong was an opportunity for him to learn. And so when he finally did graduate, he was recruited by the University of Berkeley in California, and where Carl, a confirmed bachelor, went and met and married the love of his life. So make lots of mistakes. Just have the good grace to know that these things will all teach you something. And if you make enough mistakes, you might get to move to California. And it's pretty nice there, I got to tell you. All right, I had another friend, David Cork, used to run Ferniente's downtown Toronto as the general manager. I called him once. I'd known the guy for 20 years. I said, Dave, I'm coming to Toronto. Can you get me a table at your restaurant? He says, no, we're booked. I said, you're booked. I'm your best pal. He said, everybody on the list here is more important than you are. So, and I thought, that's all right. Kind of stings a little bit. But anyway, he called me up a couple of years later. He says, Graham, I can't even see my children. I work so much. I'm working at night. I'd like to move back to London. And so I was able to help get him a job running a not-for-profit organization there. And he called me up about 4 days after he started, and he says, Graham, this is utter chaos. He said, every day, new problem, every hour, some unforeseeable tragedy occurs. And he said, just one thing after another, nonstop. And I said, Dave, I have some advice for you. I said, you need to convince yourself that that chaos uses every bit of your wit, your talent, your charm, your compassion, your brains, your smarts, your problem-solving skills. Or quit. Take your pick. And he said, that's what passes for advice? And I said, well, you never got me a table at the restaurant, so. The point is that none of this ever comes to stasis, and you are walking into a world that be so full of rapid change. It's not going to come to peace. So you need to embrace that chaos and convince yourself, I got the skills, I got the wit, I got the charm to manage it, or otherwise it will completely overwhelm you. My daughter, Melissa, turned out to be a pretty good kid, largely the responsibility of her mother, I would suggest. But she did a business degree and was off on her career, worked for a couple of years for an insurance company, got a couple of small promotions, doing very well. She called me up one day, she said, Dad, I don't think making a lot of money for a large insurance company is a very meaningful way to spend my life. And I said, of course it is. Get back to work and don't call me again. Who gave you this number? And then she said, Dad. So I had a list. She says, I've decided I would really like to be a teacher. And I hope you would support me in that. She said, but it feels like I'm taking a step backwards now. I said, well, honey, I have a few thoughts about that. Number one, I will support you in your effort to become a teacher if you promise me that you'll work with kids that really need a teacher who cares about them, or they're maybe not getting everything they need at home, but kids who really need teachers that care about them deeply and personally, number one. I said, number two, don't hang around with teachers in your spare time. You'll end up drinking your own bath water, and you'll think that your truth somehow is the truth, and it is not. I said, the third thing is, as for your step, this isn't an issue of direction. It's not forward, backwards, sideways. It's the right step because you're going to something that you are passionate about. So it's not a direction, it's a right step. And every step you take towards something you're passionate about, however sideways it might feel, it's the right step to take. I met a distinguished professor from York University a little while ago, Stuart Shanker, and he and I shared a podium in Edmonton when I was living in Alberta and had a nice chance to talk at lunchtime. And then he was back a month later from Ontario. In Calgary, I called him up. I said, hey, Stuart, let's go for breakfast. We're both speaking at this thing again today, so let's hang out. And he said, oh, okay. So we get in the car, and he says, I've been talking to people in Ontario. You know a lot of people in Ontario, and they think they speak pretty well of you. And I said, Stuart, it turns out I have a singular skill, and that's the ability to identify really talented people and glom onto them and make them into my friends. And there's a pause. And I said, "Do you get the sense it's happening to you?" He said, "Yeah, but I'm okay with it." I said, "Good, it's going to happen anyway. So I'm glad you're good with it." But the reason for this is so that we can be friends, so that we can do things together. And the takeaway for me, I don't know nearly as much as I need to know, but I know people who do. So surround yourself with talented people whenever you get the chance to do that. And there are some of your colleagues in this room, and you know who they are. Don't let them escape without glomming onto them and befriending them, even though you've only got a few hours to go. I was working at the London Investment and Education Council years ago, and a young woman showed up at my office and asked to speak to me. And she had an idea about creating a learning video about phonetic awareness, kind of splits the difference between phonics and whole language, and it seemed like a pretty good idea. So I gave her a list of about 10 things to do. You know, go do this, go do that, go do that. And I thought, well, that's the last I'll ever see her. Nice young woman, though. You know, seemed pretty bright. Came back a week later, had it all done. So then I gave her 3 really hard things to do. Thinking, oh, that'll get rid of her. Including forming a steering committee, finding some senior community leaders to help her, doing the research piece that was required. Came back a week later, had it all done. So I picked up the phone and I called some folks and I said, listen, I need to pull some money together and get this woman working. This woman is now a proud faculty member here at the college, Sheridan College, Angie Rosati, who some of you will know. And she'll tell you that she was lucky to be walking by the door that day. I don't think she was lucky at all. And I don't like people to wish other people good luck. I think you make your luck. As she made her luck, you too will make your own luck. But don't wait for the fates to provide, because they don't. The last thing I want to talk to you about is the challenge of personal perspective. This is something that I struggle with quite a bit. And I only really started to struggle with this, or realize this ongoing struggle, when I was about 12. So about 10 years ago. No, maybe a little longer than that. And when I was 12, I started looking back at when I was 5 or 6, and I thought, geez, man, you didn't know anything about nothing. You're 6 years old, you don't know nothing. Now I'm 12, grade 7, got it going on. Got to be about 17, looked back at when I was 12, and I thought, what a knob. You really didn't know much of anything, did you? But you thought you did, you know? And then I got to be 25, and I thought about when I was 17, and I thought, wow, how embarrassing. You didn't know anything at all, really, when you were 17, did you? But now, 25, I got it going on. The enduring lesson here, for me, is it's so hard to see yourself, right? And for all the circumstances surround you, and the need to always feel like you got it going on. But my favorite all-time quote is a fellow that said, and I don't even know who said it, but it's, only a fool would think himself a wise man, for a wise man knows himself a fool. So, what has this 50-year-old fool just conveyed to you this afternoon? A few lessons. Expose yourself to adventure. Make a lot of mistakes. Embrace chaos. Be passionate. Surround yourself with talented people, and make your own luck. No one will make it for you. And if you do these things with grace and compassion and a sense of humor that comes from knowing yourself a fool, I believe you have every chance of success, no matter what the world of change presents to you. I do know one other thing. Your lives will be as rich and rewarding as you choose to make them. So from this day forward, make a commitment to yourself to have a rich and rewarding life. Bless you all, and congratulations. Make somebody else pay for dinner tonight.